Hey Algebra 2, welcome to your 12th chapter. This is the first lesson. I've only done 4. There was technically 5, but you ran out of days before you get there. So we've got 4 lessons in this chapter. This is the first one. It's got a lot of square roots. This is like radical expressions is the whole module. So you're just gonna have to get used to seeing the square root symbol here. Let's just jump right in. All right. A square root is the same thing. Okay, if you have a square root of x, it is the same thing as x raised to the 1/2. I think we've talked about this. I know I've talked about it in trig because you definitely see it there too. But if you're not used to this, get used to it. Okay, so for a, if I've got the square root of -3 squared, I'm going to rewrite that as -3 squared times 1/2. Okay, that way my square root is gone, and now I've got an exponent that I can work with. I can multiply this exponent. Okay, so that's going to be -3 to the first, right? My 2's would cancel, because that one's technically over 1. So it's -3 to the first, so my answer is just -3. Alright, now the next one, all of these have 2 parts to them. So if I have the square root of -5 to the 4th, then I say, oh, well, that's just the same thing as -5 to the 4th times 1/2. So you're just multiplying the exponent by 1/2 every time. So it's -5 squared now. 4 times 1/2 is 2. And that would be 25. Alright. Okay, so this is the same deal. You're just simplifying. A square root of v to the 64th, because that 64th is inside the square root, v to the 64th times 1/2. I'm just timesing the exponent by 1/2, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the outside of the v. It's just the exponents. So that is v raised to the 32nd. Okay. Number 5. Moving right along. Alright, now this one. You've got a number out front of your variable this time. Okay, we're going to separate this as 2 square roots so that you can see it a little better. Okay, this is the exact same thing as what they gave you. Okay, but now you know the square root of 81 is 9, right? This 6 only applies to the x. It's not looking at the 81. It's only applying to the x. So that's why I wrote it as 2 separate ones. So now I've got 9 for the square root of 81, and then I've got x to the 6 times 1/2 to get it out of its square root. Okay, so that is 9 times x to the 3rd. Alright, look at us. That's 3 problem types down. Alright, number 7. Okay, for these, I want you to know a couple things. If it is an odd root, okay, that means like 5 here, right? That's an odd number. That's the root of this problem. Okay, if it's an odd root, the negative, you can have a negative inside. Okay. But if it's an even root, like 2, 4, 6, whatever, like this one's a 4, you cannot have a negative inside. Alright, you can't multiply things or square them enough to get a negative out. Right, it doesn't work. So in this case, if you have a negative inside, it's not a real number. And there should be a little option on Alex for that. Okay, a negative outside is fine though, in either case. is fine. Okay, negative outside is fine. So here, my negative is inside, but it's an odd power, so that's okay. And here, I've got a negative, and it's an even power, but the negative is outside the square root, so that's okay too. Alright? I'm telling you this because you're probably going to get one with the even root and a negative inside, and I want you to be aware of it. Okay? So, for A, alright, what's the fourth root of 81? It's a 3. Okay, so if I've got negative fourth root of 81, alright, 3 times 3 is 9, right? So that's my first two. Times 3 is 27, that's my third one. Times 3 is 81. That was my fourth 3, right? So the fourth root is 3. I leave that negative out front because it didn't have anything to do with this part. That's my answer for the first one, negative 3. Okay, for the second one, the fifth root of negative 32. If you've got a negative inside and it's an odd root, your answer is going to be negative. Okay, automatically. Unless there's a one outside too, and then they would cancel. But this one only has the one inside. So, fifth root of 32, let's see, 2 times 2 would be 4. Times 2 is 8. So that's 1, 2, 3. Times 2 is 16. That's a fourth one. Times 2 is 32. That's my fifth 2. So this one is negative 2. Alright, now this is just me double checking my roots. You can also, if you have your personal calculator, which I hope you do, you can do 2 to the 5th and double check it that way. But there you go. So let's move on to number 9. Alright. Fourth root of 1 over 625. I'm going to split it up into two things. The fourth root of 1 over the fourth root of 625. Alright. This is a pretty big number. It's not going to be 2 or 3. I already know that those up there were less than that. Looking at probably 5. It's got that 25 at the end. Let's check it. 5 times 5 is 25. Times 5 is 125. And that's 1, 2, 3. That would be 5 cubed. So if I times it by 5 again, that's going to give me 625. Okay. So, I know that the fourth root of the bottom is a 5. And the fourth root of 1 is always just 1. Okay, so if you're looking at it as a fraction like this, it looks ridiculous. But that's why I separate it into 2 so that my brain can handle it. Okay, 1/5 is my answer. Alright. So just separate them into 2 so you can figure it out that way. And we're on our last problem type. 11 and 12. Alright. We've got the fifth root of 243 times x to the 25th. Alright, split it up into 2, just like I did with the fraction on the last problem. I'm going to do the fifth root of 243 times the fifth root of x to the 25. This is the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing that I did at the very beginning of the lesson, where if it's a square root, you raise it to 1/2. In this case, you're going to take it and say, I'm going to deal with him in a minute. It will be x to the 25 times 1/5, right? So whatever your root is, that goes on the bottom, right? 25 divided by 5 is 5, right? So that's actually x to the 5th now. Okay, if you do it like that, you can reduce it like that, and that might help. Okay, so x to the 5th is going to be that piece of it. Now I got to find the fifth root of 243. Alright, and that is going to be 3. Okay, you can check me on that. I did it earlier. 3 to the 4th is 81. You times that by 3 again, you get 243. So this one is 3. So you're going to have 3x to the 5th is your answer. Okay, most annoying part of this whole lesson is taking your big numbers over there and figuring out what the actual roots are. You'll get used to a few of them as you keep doing this and as you do your topics. But the main point that I want you to really work with is the exponents of the variables. Alright? So that is all for today, and you will hear from me next time. Bye, guys!